Hi everyone, and welcome back to my top 500 games. We are currently at number 145, which is Ganoog, and that's how I've always pronounced it. In fact, when I was introduced to this game, they also called it Ganoog, and I'm just going to call it Ganoog. I've also heard it being called Gynog or something like that, but no, that just sounds weird and wrong to me. This game is also known as Wings of War in the US, but it's Ganoog as far as I'm concerned. So I've already kind of told you the story about how I was introduced to Ganoog, because when I was playing Castle of Illusion, I had to go to the toilet, and then when I came back downstairs, my friend Matthew had turned my game off, and he just put his game in and he played it, and that game is Ganoog. So whilst I did have that feeling of, why did you do this, why did you just turn my game off, I also had this feeling of, wow, this looks interesting. The best way that I can think to describe this game is that it's kind of what would usually be called a shmup or a scrolling shooter or a space shooter, I suppose, apart from you're not a spaceship, you are just this guy with wings. And the way that this game works is that each level is divided into two halves. You'll have the first half, which is generally a lot faster than the second half, and then you'll have a mini boss at the end of the first half, and then when you get to the second half, things tend to slow down, the music will change, the music will slow down in most cases, and you have a bit more of a labyrinthian level design where you'll have the walls go up and down, and you'll have tighter corridors and all that, generally speaking. You can collect different power-ups as you would with these types of games. You've got the feather, which is like a speed power-up. You have the blue and the red circles, which increase your firing amount or your firing size, as in your bullet size. You'll have these other circle icons as well, which will determine the way in which you shoot. So for example, if you pick up a red one of these, you'll shoot out in a sort of fanning shape. But if you pick up a blue one, it will shoot in a more directly forwards type of manner. And a yellow one, which is only there for specific situations, will allow you to shoot backwards as well as forwards. Now, the way that the different weapons work is that you can collect all these different scrolls, and each scroll has a letter written on it, and each letter symbolizes a particular magic ability or whatever you want to call it, like a power-up or something. And so you have 3 slots of these, and so when you collect one, it will add that letter to the first slot that is available. So say you might get like an S, then you pick up another S, the S will appear in the second slot, and if you press A, then whatever's first in the list will become your secondary weapon, and the amount that you have of that letter will determine how powerful it is and how many bullets you have. So say for example, if you collect one E and then you press A to activate it, you'll have these energy blasts which will fire off in 2 separate directions. But if you pick up more of those and use those and activate those whilst there's more of them as opposed to just the one, you will have the same ability, but you'll have more ammo and it will fire off into many different directions instead. So a chunk of this game is knowing when to pick up certain power-ups and when to know the best time to activate these different power-ups. Some of them are very situational, like for example there's the ground attack one where you'll shoot off the bullet from the top and the bottom, and they will hit the ceiling and the floor and they will sort of zoom out from there, which is very useful on the 4th stage because that has a lot of very tight corridors and it goes really fast as well. But on say stage 2, it really isn't going to make much difference, even though you can't really get it on stage 2, but you get the idea. The music on this game is very good. I really like the music for this game. The enemy design is pretty gross. I will get to that in a moment. But I will say that I have never completed this game properly. I have, and this was before the days of YouTube, bear in mind, I have seen the ending by cheating because eventually I got a ROM and you can save state and you can do the level select cheat in the starting menu. And so that is how I was able to see the ending, and the final level, level 6, is basically all of the different sub-bosses in each of the previous levels all put together, and then there's this final boss, which is so hard. But the game is really hard to begin with. So the first level is like in this cave, which is very simple. Then you've got the second level where you're kind of flying over the sea, and in the second half you actually go down into the sea. And then you've got the third one, which is like this castle, the 4th level, which is like this factory, and then the 5th level is kind of like this gooey stuff. and this was the furthest that I had ever gotten legitimately when I was a kid, and I got to the second boss of this level. It was the furthest I've ever gotten. I've probably gotten there a few times, and this is something that when I discovered it was rather shocking to me, because when you're young and you're very innocent and you don't notice certain things, and I do not know how they managed to get this in the game without it being censored at all, but I didn't know this at the time, and if you've got kids around and you don't want them hearing about these types of things at such an early age, or you're just generally sensitive to these types of things, I don't know, but I'm not going to beat around the bush about this. The second boss for like the main boss of this fifth world is a giant erect penis, and there's no nicer way for me to say that. I saw this when I was playing on the ROM, and I saw it and I was like, oh my god, I saw that when I was a kid. I don't know. It's something that's just really, really, really strange. But hey, I mean, it's not like I was traumatized or anything like that as a kid. Nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that, you know, I just saw it as a boss that was very, no pun intended, hard. And so going back to this game and seeing that, I was just like, wow, seriously? And one more thing I should mention before this game finishes, before I finish on this segment and move on to the next game, is that of the different weapons you can get, if you can get the wildfire, which is 3 W's, what that basically does is it turns your normal shots into a much bigger bullet, and you can fire those. If you can get that on the third stage and then just get through the rest as far as you can without dying, because dying will cause you to lose these weapons, if you can get that, you are set. Just make sure you keep it, because third stage wildfire is really, really nice. Just keep it for as long as you can. And I like that, you know, making something precious so that you'll really, really want to avoid death. Number 144 is Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock, and this is a clump because number 143 is Guitar Hero and number 142 is Guitar Hero 2. And the way that I was introduced to Guitar Hero was through my friend Alex from university. It was the first year of university, and I remember I went to his dorm one day and he showed me Guitar Hero 2 on his Xbox 360, and I just fell in love with it. I played it for like an hour or two before I had to leave, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I loved the concept behind it, although when I first played it, it was very hard for me. I wasn't able to do anything past easy mode, and I guess that's just a natural thing that people naturally progress, but using my little finger to press the blue button seemed so unreal, I just could not do it. But I remember I originally heard that this game had the song Psychobilly Freakout on, which is a song that I really like. I've discovered Reverend Horton Heat through a different game, and so I got into different Reverend Horton Heat songs, and Psychobilly Freakout was one of them. And this game also had songs like John the Fisherman by Primus. I also am into Primus, and there's a song called Let's Talk More Rock, which I was into, not before then, but I liked it from the game. And there was also the Buckethead song Jordan, who I was kind of into Buckethead a little bit before then, but not too much. And I just had a load of fun trying out these different songs. And it was the Christmas of 2007, which I believe would have been the Christmas of that year, where I got Guitar Hero 2 for my PS2, because you have to remember I got my PS3 in 2008. So I got Guitar Hero 2 for the PS2, and I loved it, and I eventually did get better. And I remember later on, after that point, going back to Alex's dorm, and I did a lot better than what he saw me do last time. And so that was a lot of fun. My brother also got Guitar Hero 3 this very same Christmas, but the issue I always had with Guitar Hero 3 is that I felt it was harder, like you had to be very specifically accurate with hitting the notes. I don't know if that's correct, but that's how I felt with it. Guitar Hero 3 had the Metal by Tenacious D, which I liked. It had Through the Fire and the Flames, I believe, which is the one that everyone loves. It's the one that's become sort of famous in Guitar Hero lore, I suppose. But I eventually got Guitar Hero 1, the original one, for myself sometime after that, and that has Queens of the Stone Age, No One Knows, and which I was into that song. Bad Religion was on it, my favourite band of all time, Bad Religion's on it, although it's also one of my least favourite songs, and a not very good version of it, so, yeah, Infected was on that. And so, I did go through this stage where I did kind of really get into these Guitar Hero games, but my ranking, my order of ranking these games, really just has to boil down to the different songs, because I think Guitar Hero 2 was the one where I generally enjoyed the songs the most. That is based off my memories. I mean, maybe if I listen to the songs individually, that might not necessarily be the case, but that's the way that I feel it was. Number 141 is The Addams Family, and this is the original game on the Amiga or the Mega Drive version, which I eventually played on a ROM. But I had the Amiga version, and man, this game is hard. But I also think that this may have been the second game I ever completed, because I remember Rodland, I think, was the first game I ever completed, and then there's The Addams Family, which, like I said, I think is the second game I ever completed. But this game is really hard, but I think this was really the first game that opened me up to this idea of a platform game where you don't have a strict series of levels one after the other. It's more like for lack of a better term, an open world where everything connects. Now, this is a game that I've noticed has gotten some hate, because I specifically remember the Angry Video Game Nerd, when he did his episode on Festus Quest a long time ago, he also touched on this game, The Addams Family, and he complained about how the jumping was very precise and the controls are very slippery. The way that you run around is very slippery, and that is true, but I think that you kind of adapt to it and you kind of come to understand when a jump will be successful, like if you hit an enemy, or when it won't. But this is a game I had a lot of fun exploring when I was a kid. The idea behind this game is that you have to go and free all of your different family members, because you play as Gomez, and so you have to save like Pugsley, Wednesday, Uncle Fester, and Grandma, and once you've done that, you will unlock the final level where you go to save Morticia. But you can save them in any order, aside from Morticia, who has to be last, of course. But when you start the game, you start just outside your mansion, and this is something that always really vividly sticks in my mind as well, is sort of the layout of the outside of this mansion, because to the far left you have this noose that has one of those spinny hat power-ups that you can find that will allow you to fly for a bit, and to the right you will get this pit that will allow you to do this underground grassy section. Or you can go inside the house and you can go through the different rooms there in order to follow the different paths where you'll eventually find the different bosses who all have one of the family members captive. But there's also a bunch of extra bosses as well, which will allow you to upgrade your health total. And I do remember that if you go down to the underground grassy area, there is a way around you can go that you will eventually get to this tree, and on this tree there's this bird at the top, and if you defeat the bird, your health total will go from 2 up to 3. And there's a couple other ones as well hidden around, and that's what I really liked. I really like this hidden nature, and you have to go out and explore the different areas, and everywhere is all connected, and that was really nice. And like I said, the challenge also is really hard. The game is just generally really hard. Like, you'll have parts where you've got to hit these switches in order to make blocks appear and disappear, and you could also say like have these like fireballs jumping around, or you could have sort of like platforming puzzles where you have this cannon that shoots out a cannonball, and you have to bounce off the cannonball in order to get extra length when jumping across this pit of spikes. Just things like that. And I genuinely think that this is a really nice game, and I do think that it gets a lot of, well, no, not necessarily. I don't want to say it gets a lot of negative attention, but rather the attention I've seen it being getting is never positive. It's always been negative. But honestly, I think this is a really, really nice game. And also one thing that kind of blew my mind as well is that on the inside of the main hall, in the entrance, we've got all the stairs. There is a secret door, and if you go through the secret door, you can get some bonuses, and hey, that's really nice. But I didn't realise this at the time when I played it on the Amiga, but later on when I played it on the Mega Drive emulator, you can actually go a bit further in that room to find another hidden door, and through that hidden door, you have to solve out these different puzzles, like when do you get the helicopter hat thing in order to be able to get up to this ledge, and if you do everything such perfectly, then you get access to all these lives, and it's just all these hidden things and stuff. I just really like this game, to be honest. I think it deserves a lot more praise than what it gets. number 140 is Gex 3D Enter the Gecko, also just known as Gex Enter the Gecko in the US, or it's also known as Gex 2 because it's the second Gex game. Now, I didn't know this at the time. The story behind how I got this game is very, very vivid to me because it was during 1998, during the World Cup, the Football World Cup, and I was downstairs watching it with my dad. I wasn't very interested, but my dad was basically trying to say to me, like, it's a very special event, we have to watch it all together, you know, because we're his kids and we have to do like family stuff. And my granddad came round. This is my granddad on my mum's side who always gave me all those copied games, and he just gave me Gex 3D. He was like, "Here's a game for you," and I was very happy. And so I remember saying to my dad, like, "Please, can I go and play this?" I was really excited, and I didn't want to watch the football. It was something like Norway versus Scotland or something. Even then, I didn't really care. But he said, "Yeah, okay, go on then." And I was happy to be able to go upstairs and play a game, as opposed to having to watch football just for the sake of watching football. But I also remember with this game is that the back of the box had an advert for Pandemonium 2 on it, and I remember thinking to myself, is there Pandemonium 2 on this? Which there wasn't, but still, that introduced me to the idea of Pandemonium 2, which I don't think I knew existed before then. But yeah, the way that this game works is it's a 3D platform game, and you play as Gex, who is voiced differently depending on which version of the game you have. So, for example, my version, the UK version, had this very upper class, or rather should I say like an upper class British voice. I don't remember the name of the voice actor, I believe I once knew, but Gex made a lot of references to things that I thought was quite interesting, like Woolworths, for example, and Boy George. But let's talk about the actual game here. So you have to collect all of the different remote controls because Rez has taken over the media dimension, Rez being this evil robot bad guy, and the media dimension is like this weird land in space, like a Roman type, or Greek rather, like this ancient Greek type layout, and you jump into TVs in order to go into that TV channel, and that's basically a level. And you start off by choosing which remote you want to try to get. Not that it matters, because you can choose one and then just go and get another one, doesn't matter, but you choose a level and it'll show you how to get that particular remote. So for example, for the first cartoon level, it would be like destroy 5 purple mushrooms, or that'd be one where reach the teetering rock, so you have to get to the end of the level basically. And once you've done that, you can unlock the ability to fight the boss. And the media dimension also had these different gates around, which were like glowing this particular colour, and if you walked up to the gate, it would talk. You'd hear this voice that would just sort of like threaten you, and that kind of blew my mind at the time. So for example, the first boss is the Tiki Brothers, and you go to the first gate and it's like, you will not defeat the Tiki Brothers, and so you defeat the Tiki Brothers and you go through, and there's a few more doors there as well. So you'll have this red door, this red giant red gate, and it'll say Mushupur cannot be destroyed. And so obviously you have to go around and defeat these bosses and get all the remotes from the different levels in order to unlock these gates and unlock more levels. I remember the green gate in particular only required an amount of remotes rather than defeating a boss, so when you went up to that gate it just laughed as opposed to saying that you must defeat a particular boss. And I also remember that the final gate is a sort of dragon head. It's not like an actual literal gate like the others ones are. It's like this dragon head. And I remember when you get enough remotes or you defeat the boss or whatever requirement you have to meet, it shows you a little scene of the dragon mouth opening. And I remember seeing that, and that used to freak me out, that clip of the mouth opening of this stone dragon. I used to find that rather creepy. But also, the first time I played through this game, I managed to glitch my way through the dragon mouth to get to those later levels that I wasn't supposed to get to. So that was interesting. I think you have to do like a sort of bounce jump into it at a particular angle or something, but I did manage to glitch my way into it. You can also get the silver remotes as well, so you'll have levels where there's a silver remote hidden somewhere, and you can also get one by collecting enough items, because all the items you'll have like one type of item, then you collect 30 of those and then they all transform into a different type of item, and then you'll collect all of those and then they'll transform into a different type of item, and then once you've done all those you will then unlock the other silver remote. And once again, talking about this is making me want to go and watch a let's play of it or something, just so I can relive all of these memories. But I'm going to end this part here, so thank you all for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.